It was a dark and stormy night. I was driving alone on a deserted road, looking for a place to stay. I had been traveling for a week, visiting different towns and villages. I was a journalist, working on a story about the rural life in India. I wanted to capture the beauty and the challenges of the people living in remote areas. I had seen many amazing sights and met many interesting people, but I was also exhausted and hungry. I needed a break. I saw a sign that said bed and breakfast and followed it to a large old house. The house looked like it had seen better days, but I was too tired to care. I knocked on the door and waited. A woman opened the door and greeted me with a smile. She had long black hair and pale skin. She wore a long black dress and a necklace with a strange symbol. It looked like a crescent moon with a star inside. She introduced herself as Mrs. Knight and invited me in. She said she had a room available for me and that I could stay for free. She said she'd like to have guests and that I was the first one in a long time. I thanked her and followed her to the room. The room was spacious and cozy, with a large bed, a fireplace, and a window. Mrs. Knight said she would bring me some tea and cookies and left me alone. I unpacked my bag and settled in. I felt a sudden chill and looked at the window. It was raining heavily and the wind was howling. I decided to close the curtains and light the fire. I was about to doze off when I heard a knock on the door. I got up and opened it. It was Mrs. Knight with a tray of tea and cookies. She smiled and said she hoped I was comfortable. She said she had something to show me and asked me to follow her. She said it was a surprise and that I would love it. I was curious and followed her. She led me to a door at the end of the hall. She opened it and said, "Welcome to my museum." She turned on the light and I gasped. The room was filled with human heads. They were mounted on the walls, on pedestals, and on shelves. They had different expressions, some smiling, some frowning, some screaming. They all had one thing in common. They had the same symbol on their... grabbed their flashlights and backpacks and started to climb the hill. The house was at the top, surrounded by a rusty fence and overgrown weeds. It looked old and abandoned, with broken windows and peeling paint. The door was locked, but they found a way in through a hole in the wall. They entered the house and felt a chill in the air. The house was dark and silent, except for the sound of their own footsteps. They explored the rooms, looking for anything interesting or spooky. They found nothing but dust and cobwebs. They decided to go upstairs, hoping to find something more thrilling. They climbed the creaky stairs, which squeaked with every step. They reached the second floor, where there were 4 doors. They opened them one by one and saw that they were all empty, except for the last one. The last door was different from the others. It was painted black and had a sign that said, "Enter if you dare." Of course, that only made them more curious. They ignored the warning and pushed the door open. They wished they hadn't. The room was filled with horrors. There were skeletons, skulls, and bones hanging from the walls and ceiling. There were candles, pentagrams, and bloodstains on the floor.
Thank you so much for watching.
There was a large wooden table in the center of the room with a human body lying on it.
See you in the next
The
video.
body was covered with cuts, bruises, and burns. It had no eyes, no ears, no nose, and no mouth. It was still alive, barely. It was breathing heavily and twitching slightly. They were frozen in shock and fear. They wanted to run, but they couldn't move. They felt a cold hand grab their shoulders and turn them around. They saw a woman standing behind them. She was tall and thin, with pale skin and red hair. She wore a black dress and a black hat. She had a knife in her hand and a wicked smile on her face. She said, "Welcome to my house. I've been waiting for you. You're just in time for the ritual." She laughed maniacally and stabbed them in the heart. They felt a sharp pain and then nothing. This is the final spine-chilling tale for today. Mark and Lisa were happy when they found their dream house. It was a spacious and modern 2-story house with a large backyard and a swimming pool. They had been looking for a new place to live for months, and this one seemed perfect. The price was also surprisingly low, but they didn't mind. They thought they had gotten a great deal. They moved in with their 2 children, Jake and Amy, and their dog, Rex. They quickly settled in and decorated the house to their liking. They felt at home and comfortable. They didn't notice anything strange or unusual about the house at first. But soon, things started to change. It began with small incidents, like doors slamming shut by themselves, lights flickering on and off, and objects moving or disappearing. Mark and Lisa dismissed them as coincidences or glitches. They thought maybe the house was old and needed some repairs. They didn't pay much attention to them. But then, things got worse. They started to hear noises at night, like footsteps, whispers, and screams. They felt cold spots and breezes in the house, even when the windows were closed. They smelled foul odors and saw dark shadows in the corners of their eyes. They felt watched and followed by an unseen presence. They also noticed changes in their children and their dog. Jake and Amy became more withdrawn and scared. They had nightmares and complained of seeing monsters and ghosts in their rooms. They didn't want to play or go to school. They cried and clung to their parents. Rex became more aggressive and restless. He barked and growled at nothing, and sometimes attacked Mark and Lisa. He refused to enter certain rooms or areas of the house. Mark and Lisa became worried and frightened. They realized that something was wrong with the house. They wondered if it was haunted or cursed. They searched online and found out that the house had a dark history. It had been the site of a gruesome murder-suicide, where a man had killed his wife and 2 children and then hanged himself. The house had been vacant for years until Mark and Lisa bought it. They decided to contact a paranormal investigator who agreed to come and inspect the house. He brought some equipment and tools and set them up in the living room. He told Mark and Lisa that he would try to communicate with the spirits and find out what they wanted. He asked them to stay with him and be quiet. He He turned on a device that emitted a static noise and asked some questions. "Is there anyone here with us?" There was no response. "Can you tell us your name?" There was no response. "Why are you here?" There was a pause, and then a faint voice came through the device. "Get out." Mark and Lisa felt a chill run down their spines. "Who are you?" the investigator asked. "Get out." "Are you the man who killed his family?" "Get out." "Are you angry with us?" "Get out." "Are you trying to hurt us?" "Get out." The voice became louder and angrier, repeating the same words over and over. "Get out! Get out! Get out!" The device started to crackle and distort, and then went silent. The investigator looked at Mark and Lisa and shook his head. "I'm sorry, but this is not a normal haunting. This is a demonic infestation. You have to leave this house as soon as possible. It's not safe here. The demon is very powerful and hostile. It will not stop until it destroys you and your family." Mark and Lisa felt a surge of fear and panic. They grabbed their children and their dog and ran out of the house. They got in their car and drove away, leaving behind their belongings and their dreams. They never returned to the house. They later learned that the house was demolished by the city after several reports of strange and violent incidents. No one ever lived there again.